Hello, everyone, and welcome back to CSE 391. This week, we are going to continue our discussion of regular expressions, but we're going to focus more on the context of editing or modifying files rather than just searching for files. So we're going to talk about this new command line program called sed, which will basically act as your find and replace for files on the command line. You can find instances of things and replace them with something else. We'll get there in a bit. I want to start by doing a bit of review of some of the regular expression stuff we talked about last week, and then I'll kind of start introducing some of the sed things. As a reminder, you can normally find all the files that I'll use for lecture from our course website. So you could just type this command right here to download all of the files I'll be using today. So you could type along with me while you're watching these videos. As another reminder, particularly with these weeks on regular expressions using grep and sed, this is one thing that varies quite drastically between different distributions of Linux. So I highly recommend that you're using the VM or Autu for this particular assignment, as well as the last one. For example, if you've been using Macs, that's probably been fine for a lot of the things so far, actually. But when you get to sed, this is where things get really weird, and the Mac implementation is fairly different. Similar ideas, but different details nonetheless. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have my terminal up. I'm on Autu right now. I've already downloaded all the lecture files. You can see that right here. I have all these files. The first thing I want us to do is I want us to start off with a bit of a warm-up, getting us back in the mood to think about regular expressions. You've probably been thinking about those quite a bit with our last homework assignment, but I still think that's a good thing for us to start off with. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a minute or so. I want you to try out this problem. So write the command that will take this classes.txt file and find all of the CSE classes that are not at the 300 level. So things like CSE 142 or CSE 446. So take a second, type this into item pool. What do you think the full command to do this task is? Oh, wrong one. Okay. So now that you've had some time to think about that, let's go ahead and try to tackle this together. So when I would start a problem like this, I usually will try to do it in parts. So since I'm searching files to match some pattern, that sounds a lot like grep. And since it sounds like I'll probably want something complex, like searching for all things that don't start with a 3, I kind of already know that I want to use this -e parameter or flag to say that I want to read this thing as a regular expression. But I don't think that it's necessary to try to write all of this command at once. I would start off small. Try just finding all the CSE classes. So maybe if I search for CSE in my classes.txt, oh, cool, that prints out all the CSE classes. And so now I need a way of saying all of the things that aren't 300 levels. Well, all of these course numbers have 3 numbers in them. And so maybe I want to change this pattern to somehow say not 3. One way I could do that would be to do like paren or 0 or 1 or 2 or 4. But remember last week, we talked about this idea of character sets and being able to negate the character set. So what we could do here is we could take the character set 3, and we can negate it using this little up arrow. So any character that doesn't match 3, and there we go. No 300s in there. Now, if you wanted the red highlighting to show everything, you could go ahead and finish off the rest of the line. Maybe you could do something like 0 to 9, and then I want 2 of them. But that's not what the problem was asking. It's not strictly necessary. But if you know that they're all 3 letters or 3 numbers, that should be totally fine. So that is kind of our big deal with grep. We learned about these regular expressions, and using those glossaries that we gave you last time are going to be really, really helpful kind of going forward whenever you need a regular expression thing. So now, what I want us to do is I want us to think about how to use these regular expressions to help us with the find and replace task. So I have this file called names.txt that has a bunch of famous people's names. And we're going to be using this for a lot of our examples today, where we're kind of working with how to find and replace text. So to do this find and replace, we're going to use this new program called SED, S-E-D. And SED is a way of specifying what you're looking for and what do you want to replace it with. Now, the syntax looks a little bit weird at first. So I'm just going to write something out at first, and I'll explain what this is. You say -r, say this. There you go. So all of this stuff here, you say sed -r. -r means regular expression. This is one of the things that's perfectly inconsistent between every bash command has different naming conventions for different things. Remember, for grep, it's -e. For sed, it's -r. Very annoying. Then you give it a string, just like grep, where you say, like, this is the pattern. But sed's pattern has to be a little bit more complex because you need to specify both what you want to search for, what's the find pattern, and then what's the replace pattern? What do you want to replace it with? And then it's also weird because you have to surround it with this kind of boilerplate. You have to say s/ and then regex for your find pattern, then /, and then the text you want to replace it with, and then you finish it off with a /. So, for example, if I wanted to change if I wanted to change Taylor in here to Hunter, I'd write something like this: sed -r, S for, I think S stands for substitute, but every sed command you write will basically start with S. I want to change Taylor to Hunter. And remember, you have to put those forward slashes in between everything to separate everything out. And then I want to replace it in names.txt. And now you can see that it says Swift Hunter, because I guess I'm fast or something. Now, a couple things to note about what the sed command did. Notice it printed to the console. So it printed the replaced file contents to the console. So if you went to go back to cat names.txt, you would see that the file is unchanged. We'll talk about that in a second. But when you run this command, it kind of searches through the file, finds all instances of Taylor, and replaces them with Hunter. But here, it's not replacing the actual file contents, it's just printing them to system.out. In order to change the file, you have to use another flag. So this flag is the -i flag, which stands for in place. You're saying do the change in place rather than printing to the console, just actually change the file contents. Now, this flag also takes an argument. One thing that's kind of scary when you run something like sed is you're changing files. So what if I had this like super important invite list for my birthday and I was writing this sed command and then I accidentally deleted everything on accident? That would be scary. So this in place flag takes an argument, which is a file extension for a backup. So maybe I'll say .bkp. And this syntax looks really, really weird. This is saying pass in the R flag, pass in the I flag, and the parameter for the I flag is .bkp. Now when I run this, it doesn't print anything to the console. But now if I ls, you see that there's a names.txt and a names.txt.bkp, which I abbreviated for backup. But that's just using whatever I just passed in. If you look at names.txt now, I should mute that. You can now see it says Hunter Swift. And if you look at names.txt.backup, you can see it's the original file. So it's very, very useful to make sure you're using this backup, and you can name the extension whatever you want. It's a made-up extension to save your results, just in case. Now, in all of my examples today, I am not going to be replacing them in place because I don't want to keep resetting the file to get it back to what I had before. But if a problem on a homework or you kind of need it to be done in place in real life, that's what that -i flag is for. So I'm going to go ahead and undo what I just did. There's a really easy way of doing that. I'm just going to take names.txt.backup, B for backup, and then I'm just going to move it to names.txt. So just overwrite what was there. Okay. So One thing I should mention, though, is the behavior of sed isn't always super, super clear. So for example, if I go back to this names.txt and notice again, because I just undid my change by moving the backup back to the regular file name, we have back to Taylor Swift. What if I wanted to change Joe to Hunter? So I might try to write a similar sed command, sed-r, and again, I'm not doing in place just for lectures today. I want to do s/Joe, Hunter, and then names.txt. And so it changed Joe to Hunter Joe, but it did change the Johns to Hunter because it replaced Joe with Hunter. But kind of weirdly, it didn't replace both Joes on that line with Hunters. And that's because by default, sed only replaces the first instance of something it finds. So when you say, hey, do this command, replace Joes with Hunters, the default behavior is replace the first instance of the find string with what you want to replace it with. To make it replace every instance on a line, at the very end, you put G. I think G stands for global, which is confusing because it's global to the end of the line, but whatever. Then it changes all JOs to Hunters. So there's that. Now, one pretty natural question you might have is, what if I wanted to replace forward slashes in my text? So what if I wanted to replace forward slashes with Hunter? Well, this wouldn't work in sed because forward slash is a special meaning. So just like with regular expressions, you can always escape. Oh, I should escape the previous one. If you escape, that just means treat this thing as a literal character. So this would replace all forward slashes in the file with Hunters. Now there are no forward slashes, so it's totally fine. Okay, that's sed. Sed does find replace. So if I go back, if I go, all of that, my commands are not the ones I wanted. I was trying to go back up to my earlier one. It's just gone. Oh, because I guess I never ran it. That's why. I was trying to show you this generic syntax here where you say s, regex, and then text, whatever you want to replace it with. And then you could put a G at the end to affect everything. Now, one of the things that we haven't talked about quite yet is how do we actually make the use regexes? Because all of the strings I was searching for were simple strings like Taylor or Joe. And in the next video, we're going to tackle that. How can we actually go about working with regular expressions and sed?